This is Consumer Friend.
Hello and welcome back to the Consumer Friend podcast, where we champion your rights as a consumer when you're buying goods, services and digital content. We are available through these podcasts and online at consumerfriend.org.uk. My name is Adam Carter, and today we're going to delve into the world of data with an expert. Maybe even a resident expert if he wants to come back. He might not want to, though. He might not want to. But before we get into the world of data, I just want to say hi, Lou. How are you?
I'm all right, Ads. I'm glad it's the weekend.
Happy anniversary.
Happy 2 years. Well, it's really 40 years of us being friends.
Is it really? Is it?
So lucky. 40 years. You'd be out of prison by now if you'd killed me. Do you know that? You'd probably been out living a lovely life.
I could have killed you twice.
You could have killed me twice. If that doesn't go down, like, it's one of the best things you've ever said. I could have killed you twice. I'd be out living my best life. Brilliant.
No, 40 years of friendship it's been a wonderful 40 years. Thank you very much for that friendship. Is it time we walk away from each other now?
No, It's too late now. It's like too late.
All right, fine.
Tough forever to the end.
Great. Well, yeah, but 2 years of Consumer Friend as well, and 2 years. It's been a lovely 2 years, I think. It's been quite fun.
Oh, it's been brilliant. And if you think about the things that, like, even this week, so you've got Trading Standards Wales campaign. We got mentioned in that.
Yep.
We're working with Citizens Advice on their campaign that's upcoming around second-hand cars. We have trained 10,000 people on consumer vulnerability.
That's amazing. That's our biggest achievement, I think. That's amazing. That is really good.
Yeah. I'm well pleased with that. And also, we've launched new training this week on improving consumer outcomes, and we've got some really exciting news about training coming up and what we're going to be offering people. So, yeah, it's been good. We've actually made a bit of a difference, I think.
Consumer Friend is smashing it.
Absolutely. Despite the fact we've been friends for 40 years.
and it's also our side job because we've both got full-time jobs outside of this. But yeah, it's been good fun. Yes. It's not been stressful in any way, shape or form.
No stress. Never.
So, right, with us today, Louise, I might have to ask you for a bit of your thoughts initially on James, our special guest, before I give him the actual full bio. Come on, give us some thoughts.
So James, I met James and we had a meeting about 3 years ago, I think it was. Yeah. Was it 2.5, 3 years ago, James, that we met?
I haven't said anything yet, so yes.
Yeah, he's not allowed to talk.
That.
Louise, yes. he's not allowed to talk.
Oh, I'm not allowed to talk at this point. So yes, says voice, embodied voice or voice without
random
body.
Voice
Sorry.
comes in.
Yeah.
Random voice. James actually, do you remember he helped us when we were thinking about the concept of Consumer Friend?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
It's one of the people that we asked whether it was a good idea or not. It's right that we have him back on the podcast. I'm surprised it's taken us to series 3.
Well, that's a whole other story. Right, okay, I'll do the bio bit. Right, so James Walker is the founder of Rightly, a pioneering platform dedicated to getting consumers off marketing lists. With a passion for consumer protection, James has been at the forefront of championing transparency, fairness and accountability in the marketplace. Prior to founding Rightly, James established Resolver, a platform focused on resolving consumer disputes efficiently and fairly. His vision for both Rightly and Resolver stems from a deep-rooted belief in using technology to empower consumers, enabling them to make informed decisions and understanding their rights. Values that are very much aligned with us at Consumer Friend. With over 10 years of experience in consumer advocacy, James is a recognised expert in his field, regularly contributing insights on consumer rights, data privacy and online security. His expertise has been instrumental in shaping policies and initiatives aimed at safeguarding consumer interests in an increasingly digital world. James, I hope that was okay. Hi, James. How are you?
I am peachy, and now I have a voice. You could have just kept that simple and said James has done quite a bit to help quite a few consumers. And that, I think that would have been enough to cover it off.
Do you want to just give a little bit of a brief on what each of those products are? So Rightly, I mean, I've used Rightly. I've got my mum to use Rightly. I've got my dad to use Rightly. I've given it to my wife's used it, and it is fantastic. I have to say, it really is. So do you want to just give a bit of a brief on what it is?
So Rightly's doing two key things. It's all about how that you can use your data or how your data is used. So the first part is that it helps you to be able to delete your data from a number of places, including data brokers who basically sell your data onto as many people as possible. And that's why you get the annoying catalogs through your door, or get the annoying emails where you're going, I never even knew I signed up for that. Legitimate interest is something that has so many issues to deal with, but also allows you to be able to use your data as well, to be able to organize things like when your insurance renewals are coming up, and what your coverage, or asking to cancel auto renewals. I've done a couple of other things as well. One was Jam Donut that you didn't mention, which is a cashback app I built and created, which is doing really well, helping consumers to get money back. And you did mention Resolver, which, like you said, look, it created a tool to basically help consumers to be able to raise and resolve complaints with thousands of businesses. And it's done a great job. It's got back somewhere in the region of £4 billion for consumers for free.
Wow.
If I get drunk, it's more like 6 billion. But you know, you get a bit of artistic effect with alcohol. But that's also helped build a number of the ombudsman's platforms for resolving issues and parking ticket appeals and things like that as well.
Excellent. I have to say, I love Rightly. I think it's a fantastic tool. You can go, so I went onto it. I put in my email address. It scanned my inbox. It said, these are the amount of companies that have got your details. Do you want us to send a email to each of these companies asking them to remove your data? And I said, yes, please. And off these emails go from me to these companies asking them to remove my data, and the amount of emails that started coming into my inbox reduced dramatically. It was so nice. It became easier to manage rather than just going through your emails and just going delete. The emails that were coming in were actually, well, I say wanted. The majority of them were still not wanted, but no, I hate emails anyway. But hey ho, yeah, it's absolutely brilliant tool.
Just one thing I've got to say on that though, quickly, is when you have that on those emails that come through and you go remove from marketing list. You're removed from the marketing list. You're not removed from their database. Your data is still in there, and that's the really frustrating bit, is that actually you think that going remove is removing your data, unless you specifically ask for your data to be removed from a firm. All they do is remove you from a list.
There was one thing you mentioned there, legitimate interest. So when we're signing up to whatever it is we're signing up to, when we're buying a product online, are we agreeing to be contacted by other third parties that they've decided that would be in our interest? Is that what that means?
It isn't, but what you're saying is accurate as well. So, when you sign up, you may see that box that says we pass your details on to selected third parties. Sometimes they will put it in their terms and conditions. So I bought some socks, and actually within that it said that they would pass my data on to 12 other companies as part of my buying of socks. And I'm like, well, I didn't agree to that. Well, it's in the terms and conditions, mate. You should have read them. But there's a band of people out there called data brokers, and it's sort of, the name almost says everything about them. The logic is that they find out data on you, they build up a profile, and they sell it on to companies to be able to use it to market to you. Now, a company who you probably have never given your data to, having your data on you seems a bit odd, but it's done under legitimate interest. And the logic is that they can say, well, we think that there are goods and services that would be liked by you, and therefore that we can send you marketing material, even though you've never consented to it.
Is that what legitimate interest means? When I've done data protection, I don't see that. Is that legitimate interest?
It's how the data marketing industry gets around the fact that GDPR exists. Legitimate interest is the way that you can be on a list and your data can be moved from one place to another. Whether it's legitimate in what they do, that's the second debate, but that's the way that they use it.
So GDPR is a general data protection regulations for anybody out there. It's what governs what data can be shared, and it's regulated by the Information Commissioner. So in relation, because data is valuable, isn't it, James? So where we're at with this is any consumers listening to this, their data is valuable to businesses.
Yes, as cheap as it may be. And what I mean by that is if I go and buy an individual consumer's data, you're not going to get anything for it. You'd be lucky if you get a couple of pence. But when you start aggregating data together into hundreds of thousands or millions, then it becomes very useful. When you have propensity to buy, interest to buy in something, when you have what you've bought before, it becomes more interesting. So the more data that can be built up upon you as a profile, the more value that it has.
Because again, it comes back to, we recently did a podcast on media literacy as well. And I suppose this comes back to sort of the marketing email. So if I'm going, I consent to my data being used, my data is then passed to these other companies who use legitimate interest to then market things that they think I might like to me.
Yes.
Right. So then I've got to try and decipher whether what they're offering me is real, whether what they're offering me is true, whether the statements they're making are true and honest from that perspective. So again, I've got to have a degree of media literacy to understand, an understanding of media literacy to then decipher what's real and what's not.
But you've also got to have that degree of media literacy to understand the reasons why information is being put in front of your face, onto your smartphone, onto your tablet. You've got to understand the reasons why that's appearing there and how it's appeared there, and that is through these organizations and these companies having your data, these data brokers having your data and then passing it on because you've been categorized as a 40-year-old female who once bought a pink pair of socks.
You see, according to one of the data brokers, I've got a high propensity to have to go fly fishing and have a CD collection. And it also tells me... No, I've never been fly fishing. I haven't been fly fishing. I think the last time I fished, I was about 12. But according to them, I do. The other part that I also pick up from when you start reading these things is you go and find that they will have data like what is your propensity to get cancer. And you start to go, well, hang on a second, this is just plain weird. How do they know that when they don't even know that I'm not fly fishing and I've never bought Fly Fishing by J.R. Hartley? You know, there's this entire area of the market where it's pseudoscience being used or to work out who I am and what I do.
Yeah, there's assumptions being made.
There's a dark side to this as well, though, isn't there? So where if we talk about scams for a little while, I remember dealing with a scam victim whose data he had at one point, I think it was about 12 years previously, ticked a box to say that his data could be shared, and it was something to do with animals at the time. And within the 12-year time period, his data was sold on or passed on over 200 times, and then it ended up in some criminals' hands because it was passed on by at some point during that journey a legitimate company to a criminal entity who then relentlessly targeted him with similar marketing messages but from criminal entities, and he ended up losing a huge amount of money. And we see this really often.
And by the way, I think that's absolutely tragic. I went and documented my data footprint. So I went to ask organizations that I knew that had my data, and then I asked them who they had passed my data on to if they had. From that, I expanded out to a new set of companies. I then went to data brokers and then started cross-referencing how my data was moving between different organizations. I sort of stopped at the point that I got to 5,000 companies and rising. And of that 5,000, 4,500 plus I'd never even heard of or knew that they'd had my data. And that's because the way that data brokers have bought and sold it and had done that very effectively. The key companies that I found, almost let's call them the nodes in that the way that my data had been moved around. I went to a number of websites which were competition websites. And the reason being is that when I'd found my data had reached data brokers, quite often it seemed to have come through a competition website, win an iPhone. I've never entered a competition to win an iPhone, but I found these websites where supposedly I had. One of them in America, one of them in South America, a couple in the UK. And so I created a new email address, walkerjgdata@gmail.com. went to all of these competition websites where my information had supposedly appeared, entered my details in, but I added a plus before the @ sign in your email. And I entered the name of the website that I was filling in. So I don't know, Survey Biz as an example. So Walker JG data plus surveybiz at gmail.com. Within 20 minutes, that new email address had got spam. And I can show which of the websites it had come from because I'd marked them with this plus so that it shows me where the data had been entered. Within 2 hours, I had my first gambling email. Within 4 hours, I had my first phishing email telling me that I had a Lenovo laptop that I needed to pay £1 for. And if I paid £1, I could release it and have my laptop sent to me. In the meantime, my inbox was full with porn emails as well. So I could see that my data was being sold on to scammers. My data was being sold on to porn websites. My data was being sold on to gambling websites. Within, hours of me entering data.
That's crazy. But I mean, that's crazy. Even if you were to put in your details, but you were getting these emails prior to that. They'd had your data prior to that. So what had happened there? Had criminals just found your data and then inputted it into the competition website, or how do you think they actually did it?
I have to make a little bit of a presumption on this. So terms and conditions apply. However, I suspect that where data breaches have occurred in my data, that data has been harvested. It then goes through a competition website to legitimize it, and then it can be sold onto a data broker. So somebody can go, hey, look, this data is legitimate. Here's the source that it came from. They know somewhere in that chain knows what is happening is wrong and illegal, but there's money to be made.
It's data laundering.
Yeah, this is the thing.
Yeah.
Well, it is. Like, if you think about it, and as you'll know all about this because this is your bag as well, that some of the most influential companies, Google, Facebook, Meta, all of those, they're data companies.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
They make their money from data because actually because it's so valuable to ensure that your marketing messages, the adverts that you then put in front of people, are responded to. Effectively, you get a higher response rate to whatever you're trying to sell.
Yeah.
So it's completely valuable.
It's the old one, if you're not buying the product, you are the product.
And Adam said that.
Yeah.
If the product is free, you are the product.
Yeah. Fundamentally, you're at a point where somebody's got to work out how to monetize you. And how do you do it? It's selling you stuff or passing your data on to somebody else who thinks they can sell you stuff.
But I buy all the stuff. This is the problem. I totally buy all the stuff.
And that's where they've got you. But that's where they've got 9 billion people in the world, or however many people that are. What
did we do though before this?
We didn't buy all the crap. We didn't buy all the crap. We had adverts in magazines. We had adverts on TVs. They were more regulated. It was more informed. Now there is a wild west of scams, fraud, adverts.
Well, this is the thing. I still want a Mr. Freeze ice maker machine that you get that used to be on the adverts. And now you're not even allowed to advertise those sort of things to kids, are you? Like sugar and all of that sort of stuff. Like chocolate and toys, you're not allowed to do that. Like Kinder eggs, you're not allowed to advertise those sort of things to kids as well. Gambling's not allowed to. Children are not allowed to be exposed to gambling advertising. But it astounds me that people still manage to run business in the 1980s and 1990s without all of this.
You have to be smarter.
Yeah. Or actually, I think you knew exactly where everyone was. Now everyone is everywhere. We're in a world where actually we're all spread very thinly, but we're all focused on which medium we're interested in. As opposed to in the 1980s, everyone was just watching TV or watching movies at the cinema, and that was it, and reading their newspaper. So now you've got to go wider, but it means that it's often easier to target who you're after as well.
It blows my mind. I listened to a podcast this week about that our brains are not geared up for the amount of information and messages that we're currently receiving from everywhere, like from all of the tech, the computers, the Teams messages, the socials, all of it. That this is why as well. This is part of the issue around mental health, because we can't deal with all of the information that we're getting.
Total information overload. Fun.
Yeah, there's a chap that we worked with at the scam team called Nick Luby. Sorry to name. I'm going to mention him here, but he
Name drop him.
name
Do
drop.
it.
So Nick Luby, and I've been to a few presentations from him, and he says the problem with the world today is that we are overwhelmed and underwhelmed. There is so much information going into us at all times, but it's all crap. It's too much information. It's all rubbish.
He's coming on the podcast, so we're able to talk to him in person.
Okay,
He's going to be one of our guests. Adam loves all that stuff
Nice.
as well. No, but it's so interesting as well, because actually, can you remember, like, if we remember actually back, like, so I don't remember life without a smartphone.
I've often considered getting a flip phone, just getting rid of it and getting a flip phone.
Yeah, just a flip phone. But you probably play Snake on it all day. Or Tetris. Snake or Tetris, that's showing our age, but innit? The other thing I was going to ask you about was the... I've done it before from my data protection perspectives. It's have I been PWNED?
Pawned.
So it's pawned,
Yeah.
but it's not pawned as in the way.
Yeah.
So have I been pawned? So that's a good tool, isn't it? Which we can put in the bio of the
Definitely.
podcast for people to see whether there's been any data breaches in relation to their particular email.
Yeah, and look, the really interesting bit with your data and breaches is your data's value goes down over time post the breach. So what you'll see is that when a breach occurs, let's say it's before the company knows that a breach has happened, that's when whoever has breached the data can get the most value for it. And the reason being is that you're not aware of the breach. So if I phone you up from your ISP and I say that there's a real problem with your broadband, I need you to download something onto your laptop, and I go to the person on the phone, hang on a second, how do I know it's you? Well, this is your address, this is the broadband speed that you've got, this is the service you're taking. I go, you sound legitimate. I download something onto my laptop and whatever it does is nasty. Once a breach occurs, then the value in the data that's being breached goes down, and it carries on going down over time. Yeah. So what you see is that data will end up being sold on initially at a high price, and that price rapidly goes down as more people get to access it and use it. So the more chances that you've had the data used against you in a scam, the less value it's worth. So when you go and have a look at have I been pawned, however you want to say it, what you're going to see is all the places that have had your data breached. When you see that, it probably looks quite scary because you will see that there's quite a few places. The larger organizations have been very good at losing data. You know, I think LinkedIn had a serious breach back in 2012 or something. That
Talk,
yeah,
didn't they? We had one with the Talk breach.
But there are so many others that what you'll find is that you're likely to find somewhere between 3 and 10 organizations that have breached your data. And that's why when actually scammers have data is often from that.
Well, that's scary, isn't it? Between 3 and 10. Right. Yeah. So if we were going to summarise this and we were going to wrap this up from a consumer perspective, what would be your 3 top tips for consumers to keep their data safe? So your top 3 things. What should you do to keep your data safe?
Whenever you sign up to anything where it says third parties or passing your data on or marketing to you, don't tick those boxes. But also be very careful when you read them, because some websites are very articulate at making it sound that you should tick it. And actually what you're ticking is to allow your data to be marketed. So read what it says as thoroughly as you can, and make sure that you're doing the right ticking or unticking of the boxes. The second one is that when you do sign up to a new website, if you've got a Gmail address, that point that I was making earlier about the plus is invaluable. So WalkerJG data plus site name at gmail.com. That won't affect the ability of the email to work, but what it will mean is that every time you receive an email from now on, that plus and whatever the site name is in there. So you can start to see if your data is being passed on to other people, where it was passed on from. And it's a very quick and easy way to be able to understand how your data is being used. The third one is, I would say, if you have the time, is to write to data brokers. Rightly has a list of them. You can find other lists on the internet. You can write to them directly or use something like Rightly, and ask to be removed from their list, but have an objection on your right for your data to be processed. Because that means that even though that they remove you now, if your data comes in from someone else, they still can't store it. So object to the processing of your data.
So this is under GDPR. You've got the right to object.
Yes. You actually have many rights that we don't know about. One is, the right to make sure that your data is accurate, to object to processing of it, to ask for the deletion of it, and also to ask for a full copy of it. And you can even ask for your copy of your data to be sent to another firm if you want. We don't use any of these rights because we don't understand them.
From a very simplistic approach, the best thing as well, so for consumers, is don't tick the box.
Don't tick the box.
So if they're going to do anything, do number one, don't tick the box, which would be, because again, there's a lot of stuff in relation to where we're talking about the Gmail Plus and the Rightly and the objections. Some consumers may not feel that they're able to do those things. So the simplest way to protect your data would be to not tick the box so that your data can't be shared.
Yeah, agreed.
Perfect.
And
the other one I would throw on. Yes.
But how do you use a trusted website? What's a trusted website?
For me, and I know we've harked on about it before, is if you wanted to find out if a website was trustworthy, we would use the Get Safe Online tool, which has got a website checker, which gives you a potential fraud score, a potential trust score on that particular website.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point. The one that I would say now, you remember a few years ago that we always used to say, look out for a padlock on a website because then you know it's legitimate. Yeah. That does not work any longer. You can be a scamming site and still have a padlock on there.
Yep.
So I think, the tools that you're talking about are really key because simple ways of being able to check is very hard. I mean, when you go on a website, remember if it's .co.uk does not mean it's in the UK. It could be anywhere in the world. Anyone can buy a .co.uk domain address.
Can I just quickly, before you, Lou, I get the feeling you're about to wrap up, which is fine by me. It's no problem at all.
I wasn't.
I mean, because I could do this for hours. But I just want to ask one question, and it's going to be my last question. And James, I want to know, what are your thoughts on the pop-up Chinese e-commerce website? So we've had Temu over the last year, haven't we? That's popped up.
Yep.
But we've had so many more prior to that. We've had AliExpress, Shine or Shine, whatever it's called, where you were able to directly buy from these Chinese mass producers of plastic stuff that might not necessarily be the safest thing that you can buy. What are your thoughts around the data around that as well?
Well, I'm going to actually divide this up into a little bit before that as well. Temu, I've heard, has been dealing with a number of Chinese factories that had either gone bust or lost contracts abroad. And what they fundamentally ended up with is loads of products trying to go, how do we get rid of them? So they built a website to try and get rid of them, or an app to try and get rid of them. They have been paying big bucks to acquire customers. If you did an affiliate marketing with them, i.e. you promote them and someone buys, they're paying at sort of 2-3 times the rate of anyone else in the market for doing a similar thing. So you can see that they are desperate to be able to get a market presence. I've got nothing against the concept of free or international trade. If somebody does want to buy something, always go and use your credit card if it's over £30 and below £1,000, because you've got good protection if something goes wrong. However, I would also therefore caution at that point and go, you are passing your data on to someone that you don't know, that you have no control over, that's not in the same country as you, and do you feel comfortable with that? If you do, hey ho, carry on. If you don't, then even though you're being offered a great value product, I wouldn't go forward.
Absolutely. So, and I've got one follow-up question. Sorry, Louise, I'm so sorry. So
you love this stuff. I love you. You're a data geek. It's making me happy.
It's like having Columbo. Just one more thing.
Brilliant.
So what would you say to those people that would say to you, my data's out there, my data's gone, the horse has bolted, why should I care anymore?
I would say to those people, carry on. You seem quite happy with the situation as is. I think you're being naive, but that's fine. You can do it. If somebody wants to be a little bit more rational, I'll go back to what your data is worth. The more data that is collected on you or leaked on you, the greater the insight on you is, and the greater the propensity for scams. And I'm not talking about that email.
Manipulation. Or just manipulation.
Exactly. Not just that email that you get that says, hey, buy this, but the situation where somebody knows the name of your son or daughter, that they know where they're at. They know where that you spend money. Okay, I can start being able to construct something that is now really interesting in the way that I try and target you, because I don't need to go, I was just send 1,000 dumb emails. I can start going after 5 key people, but I'm going to really target you on how I do it.
Yeah.
I did some work within my kids' school once, and I did a presentation on once your data's out there, it's out there, like to kids about because children just post so many pictures all the time, all over the internet. And I used their teacher who'd asked me to do the presentation as an example, and I just opened Google, searched him. I had his mum's name, his dad's name, his kid's date of birth, I had his kid's weight, I had his address, I had his sister's address, I had his middle name, I had everything. I had all of that just from an open source, just to show that, and photos, and I had you could find out everything about a person really easily. So it's dangerous, actually, which is, I mean, not to frighten people, but like Adam said, the horse is not bolted. There are things you can do to protect yourself. However, on a lighter note, I am going to wrap it up now. I have one last question, which is obviously the most important question now that we've gone down the dark world of probably organised crime and data rackets, Adam. James,
or rackets.
If you had to,
sorry,
or rackets,
yeah,
rackets or rackets, James, if you had to name your favourite squirrel, what would it be?
Secret.
A secret squirrel. That's not a proper squirrel, but
No, it is a proper squirrel.
Is it?
Yeah, it was a 1970s cartoon, Secret Squirrel.
Perfect.
It's a character.
Perfect.
And had a little sidekick, which I think possibly was a mole or something. But,
Excellent. Thank you very much for today, James. That's been very insightful and very interesting. Adam's going to go away and Google research a whole load of it. And I'm
also going to go away and research Secret Squirrel. My favourite was grey. Yours was flying, wasn't it?
Flying! And you're like a grey squirrel. Adam's so boring. I was like, Adam, there's 200 different types of squirrels and yours is a grey one.
We also missed National Squirrel Appreciation Day back in January, I think it was. We forgot about it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, how can we do that?
Enough, did we?
James, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been I've very much enjoyed it. I could have carried on for hours, but unfortunately we've got to keep it down below half an hour. I don't know why we've set ourselves those rules, but we have. So as ever, Consumer Friend is available at consumerfriend.org.uk. Please follow us on social media. You can get in touch with us at info@consumerfriend.org.uk. That's us putting our data out there. We haven't had many scam emails. I wonder why that is. Louise, thank you very much.
Thanks,
and James, thank you.
Always pleasure, never a chore.
For another year, Adam. So 2 years. Let's aim for 3. Let's go big.
And James, thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Well done, everyone.
This is Consumer Friend.